Good morning, and thank you for joining me for today's Sunday sermon from Holy Saviour Church. One of those books that I intend to read sometime, one of those great works of 19th century literature, is Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. And I'm always intrigued by the opening line of that novel, where Tolstoy says, "All happy families are alike, but an unhappy family is an unhappy in its own way." Today is the Feast of Candlemas, more properly called the Presentation of Christ in the Temple, and it marks the end of the Christmas and Epiphany season. But interestingly, in the Roman Catholic Church, this celebration happens a little bit earlier in the Christmas season, and it has a different name. It's known as the Feast of the Holy Family. And I wonder what comes into our minds when we think of the Holy Family. I dare say most of us have a nice kind of Christmas card, idealised image of the Holy Family. We probably think of angels whispering in the ears of Mary and Joseph, telling them what to do in their moments of doubt, warning them in times of danger and so on. Almost as if they never really had any real doubts, if they never really had to agonise over difficult decisions. And so we might wonder, how can the Holy Family be a sort of model for our families, and indeed our church families? I suppose we tend to see the home at Nazareth as a place there was a sort of perfect harmony, complete understanding. As if Jesus and Mary and Joseph lived in a sort of little sunlit island, cut off from the storms of the world. Well, the reality is we're not told very much in the Gospels about the life of the Holy Family, but we do get some little glimpses. But even these little glimpses are enough to show us how unreal the picture I just outlined actually is. On the contrary, we see that the Holy Family had more than its fair share of troubles. We see, for example, that when the time came for Jesus to be born, Joseph and Mary couldn't find anywhere to stay. And we know that their joy at Jesus' birth must have been very, very short-lived, because almost immediately he became a target for Herod's band of murderous hit squads. And so they had to take the child and they had to flee to a foreign country where they discovered what it was like to be a foreigner, to be an alien in a strange land. And then eventually, back in their own country, they had to find a place where they could begin life all over again. And so they eventually settled in Nazareth. And we know that when Jesus was 12, during a visit to Jerusalem, he got lost. And Joseph and Mary must have sought him with fear and indeed panic in their hearts. During his public life, Mary didn't always seem to understand what Jesus was doing. She feared that he was being taken over by the crowds. On one occasion, she made a vain attempt to rescue him. And then later she saw the tide turn against him and the net of authority close in around him. And of course, finally came the ignominy, the horror, the absolute humiliation of the crucifixion, when a sword of sorrow pierced her heart, but a real, actual spear pierced the heart of her son. And so in view of all of these things, no one can really claim that the Holy Family had a nice, sheltered, trouble-free life. Our families, all of our families, are at some time or another visited by sorrow, by misunderstanding, by problems of one kind or another. because the Holy Family knew sorrow, because they knew trouble and pain, perhaps they can then serve as a model for us. We all look around us and we look at what we think are other people's perfect families. But of course, there is no such thing as a perfect family. Every family goes through tough times, sooner or later. Every family has to make sacrifices from time to time. And wherever human beings are living under the one roof, there are misunderstandings and conflicts from time to time. All of us are wounded by the effects of human selfishness. And so what matters is how we deal with these problems, how we resolve these conflicts. The Holy Family had to struggle. They had to make big sacrifices. But these are precisely the things which form bonds between people. People are closer to each other in hard times often than they are in the good ones. There is nothing like shared hardships to create a bond between people. There is more depth to relationships that have had to weather some storms. Holiness is the fruit of sacrifice and of struggle. So whilst it would be nice to believe that old phrase that ideally there is no place like home, in reality we need to understand that there is no such place as an ideal home. Our hymn for today: Lord of all hopefulness, and may God's peace go with you.